Christmas! I'm sorry, I don't have a fun Christmas outfit or anything like I did for Halloween, but at least I'm not taking the lazy way out and doing my review of the Christmas toy again, although it's tempting. I do have this. These were given to me as a Christmas present, and see, they're kind of Christmas colors, sort of. The problem is, when I'm wearing these, I actually can't see anything. So, as goggles, not necessarily the most useful thing in the world, but I'm sure the colors are at least, you know, festive, right? Anyway, put those away. Today's movie is The Santa Claus 2. I feel like pretty much everybody in the world saw The Santa Claus. It's the one where Tim Allen is a divorced dad who accidentally murders Santa Claus and then takes his place. You know, for kids. So let's see what happens next. We open with a lot of North Pole antics, elves making toys that no kid today would actually play with, Santa overseeing everything, that sort of thing. And then there's this submarine parody bit, where a plane is flying overhead and the workshop has to go in silent running to avoid being detected. I mean, planes can't generally detect somebody talking on the ground below them, but it's supposed to be funny, I guess. Of course, all of this has nothing to do with the plot, but that's fine. I'm sure the plot will start any day now. Meanwhile, we cut to Santa's son, Charlie, who's breaking into his high school gymnasium late at night to commit vandalism, because there's absolutely nothing better he could do with his cute female accomplice. But while he's in the middle of spray painting the gym wall, the principal climbs up a ladder to meet him. Okay, dude went through the skylight, which is crazy over the top for a teenager to start with. He came down Mission Impossible style. But the principal just happened to be hanging out in the gym that night in case somebody did this. I mean, if he tripped an alarm, either we would have heard it or the police would have arrived. So apparently the principal just knew somebody was going to bust into the gym that night and was just hanging around waiting to catch him in the act? Anyway, back to playing around at the North Pole. I'm mentioning this because so much time is being wasted here, and we're going to care about that later. We are now 15 minutes into this movie, and it's finally time for our plot to get started. Santa's elves reveal that there is in fact a second Claus to being Santa. If he doesn't find a Mrs. Claus by Christmas, which is a month away, he'll stop being Santa. There is so much wrong with this. First of all, the movie establishes he's been Santa for 8 years. 8 years! And now he's got a deadline to find a Mrs. Claus. So the clause must say, if you don't find a wife within the first 8 years, not 10 or 5 or 2 or 1, 8. 8 years exactly, to the day. Secondly, there's no mention of what happened to the previous Mrs. Claus when the last Santa died. But there had to be one, right? That's the rule. So, where did she go? What happened to her when her husband died? And why is there a bizarre 8-year time limit? And how did nobody catch on to this until the last minute? At no point did any of the elves go, hey, whatever happened to that old Mrs. Claus, and when are we getting a new one? Secondly, and more importantly, this is our plot. Santa has to find a woman, marry her, and then basically abduct her from her life, her friends, family, and career to take her to the North Pole to live with elves in the next 30 days. No romance, no consideration of how this will upset the life of the woman he chooses. In this movie, the potential wife is not presented as a person, but an object to be acquired. I mean, wow. There's also no talk of what she actually does at the workshop, what her role is, what her duties are. She just has to be there. She just has to exist like a trophy on a mantelpiece. This is really, really bad, guys.
It's the Mrs. Claus.
As the deadline approaches, Santa slowly starts losing his powers and his Santa-ness, which will probably make it easier for him to find a bride once he loses the beard and the fat belly. We see him attending a meeting of legendary figures, including Father Time, Mother Nature, and the Tooth Fairy, who's constantly trying to change his name because it's not very butch. Santa suggests to Cupid that maybe Cupid could just shoot Santa in the butt and then he could fall in love with a woman and that would make it easier for him to marry somebody. Dude, what about the woman's feelings? Like, Yeah, it's a real bummer you're not going to get to marry someone that you love. But you are the only person in this equation, pal. You're looking to get a bride simply to keep your job. Boo-hoo if you don't love her. And no, I'm not saying that he should have Cupid go shoot a girl to fall in love with him, because that would be much, much worse. Since Santa needs to help his son Charlie get off the naughty list and find a wife in the next month, he decides to create a toy duplicate Santa to handle things at the North Pole while he goes home to deal with things, and decides not to tell any of the other elves that it's a duplicate. Yeah, none of the elves are going to notice the difference. Before he leaves, he's handed a watch to help him keep track of his magical power. If he uses too much magic, he's told he won't be able to come home. I don't remember there being like a limited magic supply in the first movie. I have no idea why his magic can run out. I guess it's just to add some more tension to the plot. I'm sure it'll be super effective. So Santa, his ex-wife, and his ex-wife's new husband all go to Charlie's school to meet the principal about Charlie's problems. And I'm not going to lie, it's silly, but I actually kind of like this real introduction to the principal's character.
I want you to look into my eyes. What do you see?
It's dark. And it's cold.
It's your future, Mr. Picardo. Keep this up and you will spend the rest of your life stabbing trash by the highway. Do I make myself clear?
Yes.
So what are you gonna do?
I'm going straight to third period geometry.
I find that appealing. There's probably something deeply flawed with me. And now we see Santa's first and only blind date. They start to bond over the fact that they both love Christmas. So far, so good. This woman loves Christmas so much she's wearing a giant Santa sweater and, like, Christmas present, charm bracelet. Basically, I have a feeling that if you offered her the job as Mrs. Claus, she'd marry you on the spot. She loves Christmas so much, she starts singing a Christmas carol for the entire restaurant, and at this point, we're supposed to be laughing at how weird she is, or turned off by how over the top she is, and Santa gets out of the date as quick as he can, and is kind of insulting to her in the process. Dude, you're looking for somebody willing to marry you and abandon their life in less than a month so that you can keep your gig as Santa. You need to lower your standards a little bit. Honestly, this is what you deserve. This is exactly what you deserve. She loves Christmas. She'd love being Mrs. Claus. She probably wouldn't love you, and you wouldn't love her. And guess what? If you're marrying somebody just for your career, you don't deserve love. Charlie manages to get away with spray painting another mural, this time in the middle of the day, in the hallway on the lockers. This gets him and Santa stuck doing community service. So if Charlie breaks into the gym in the middle of the night through the skylight, the principal catches him. But during the middle of the school day, he has enough time to finish the entire mural in the middle of the school hallway without getting caught. Oh, consistency is all I'm asking for. While doing community service, Santa and the principal start flirting a little bit, and a little girl runs up to Santa, because despite him not having a beard and having lost a lot of weight, she still thinks he's Santa Claus. Santa uses up a little bit of magic so that he can know the little girl's name and tell her she's going to have a good Christmas. Since they briefly flirted at community service, Santa decides to swing by the principal's house and ask her out to dinner. We're not supposed to worry about how he knows her address. But because they suddenly and magically have chemistry despite hating each other until that morning, he gets invited along to the school faculty Christmas party. He also uses more of his magic to turn his borrowed minivan into a horse-drawn carriages in hopes of impressing her. That seems like a smart use of your resources. The principal finally decides to share why she's such a Grinch at Christmas, despite the fact that up until this point, we're supposed to just think of her as a cold-hearted bitch in general, not just at Christmas. And also, I don't think she's that cold-hearted a bitch. She's just very focused on what's best for her students and doesn't mollycoddle them. It's not great, but she cares, and she's doing a decent job. Her school is one of the top... It doesn't matter. The short version is, she got into fights at school because she believed in Santa so hard, and the other kids didn't. And she came home with a bloody nose, and that's when her parents set her straight, and it ruined Christmas for her forever. Okay. Here's where I'm going to ruin every Santa Claus-related Christmas movie for you. And I'm sorry. You may want to stop now. In this movie, just like in the real world, kids, Santa is real. Right? He's the main character of the movie. We've seen him, we know his job. He goes to people's houses and delivers toys, just like in the real world, kids. So if Santa actually exists, and delivers these toys, how can anyone not believe in him? Because every Christmas day, kids and parents wake up, go downstairs to the tree, or, into the living room if it's one story, and find presents there that the parents did not buy. Because Santa is real. He delivered presents. And the parents find presents under the trees that they did not purchase for their children. So how can they doubt that Santa Claus is real when every year there are toys they did not buy? Santa proves his existence every year. If it's the parents buying the toys, then Santa's not delivering anything. But we know he is. So how in this world can anybody not believe in Santa, kid or adult? Because surely the adults would believe in Santa when, hey look, we didn't buy that rocking horse. Right? It must be from Santa. This is the major flaw in pretty much any Christmas movie involving Santa, because there's always, but if you stop believing, or, I believed up until this point, and then I didn't believe anymore. What about when you had kids, and you saw them getting toys you didn't buy, that didn't spark some more belief in you? Their Christmas party is absolutely dreadful. And that's when Santa decides to liven things up, using his magic to summon the perfect present for everyone there. Man, Santa really knows how to impress a lady. Of course, nobody actually questions too hard how this bag of presents magically appeared, filled with everyone's favorite childhood toys. Santa decides to reveal to the principal that he's actually Santa Claus, which might be a bit much for a first date, but remember, he's got a ticking clock. This upsets her because despite of all the magic she's encountered, the horse-drawn carriage, a magical snowfall, magically appearing mistletoe, magically appearing presents, including her childhood favorite toy, she decides that he must be making fun of her and kicks him out. Santa and Charlie finally have it out. Charlie's upset because he can't tell any of his friends that his dad is Santa, and keeping that secret is tearing him apart, Lisa. Santa tells him that he won't have to worry for much longer because he's about to lose his job as Santa, and Charlie doesn't care. So a good chunk of time in this movie is spent on the idea that Toy Santa slowly turns the North Pole into a military regime due to his overly strict adherence to the rules. This mostly eats up a lot of time and will only matter at the end of the story, which is why I've skipped pretty much all of it. Suffice to say, he decides that all kids are naughty and the entire world's getting coal, and he starts imprisoning the elves for resisting him. One of the elves manages to escape and goes to get Santa to bring him back to the North Pole to save Christmas. But Santa reveals he's all out of magic, so he can't go back. That's when they decide they'll just ride a reindeer back. What was the point of the whole, if you run out of magic, you can't come back? If the obvious loophole is ride a reindeer? So he can go back, he just has to ride a reindeer, which is how he left in the first place, and leaving in the first place didn't use any magic. You need magic to come back, but not to get there. But you can come back the way you went there, which didn't use magic. But if you run out of magic, nothing will happen. Nothing, apparently. Unfortunately, the reindeer's been eating too much junk food, so he makes a fart joke while the characters try to come up with another plan. Because again, the whole, you can't go back if you run out of magic, was apparently completely made up. After some more slapstick revealing that they're trying to pull out one of Santa's teeth to summon the Tooth Fairy, his stepdaughter walks in to reveal she's lost a tooth because the movie's running out of time, so we have to go for Deus Ex Dentistry. They talk the Tooth Fairy into flying Santa and his elf back to the North Pole, even though he's out of magic. That was easy. The timeline here is a little weird because it looks like the next morning Charlie approaches the principal, because it was nighttime when they left with the Tooth Fairy, but morning when Charlie talks to the principal, but we're led to believe that both of these stories are happening contiguously. So, I don't know, man. It's hard. The day and night do not make sense here at the end. Anyway, Charlie approaches the principal to explain to her that his dad really is Santa and shows her the magical snow globe from the first movie. And, of course, that's not going to do her any good since Santa already left to go back to the North Pole. Santa is immediately captured by Toy Santa, so that's it. Story's over. Nobody's left to save Christmas. It's already Christmas Eve. It's cold for the entire world, and Santa never found a bride. Game over, man. Game over. Santa is sad. He hurt his kid, failed Christmas, and worst of all, hurt the woman he loves. The woman he's been on exactly one date with. The woman that 3 days ago he hated and hated him. This movie is stupid. Then, as if the writers realized they didn't have time to get a proper ending, Charlie and the principal just arrive, courtesy of the Tooth Fairy. It's extremely sudden, out of nowhere, and pretty jarring. I am a sucker for the cavalry to the rescue thing, but this is dumb. Maybe instead, they could have used all that time they wasted at the beginning of the film to craft an actual ending. But no, you get a very strong sense that in the writer's room they just went, let's hurry this up. So Santa's gonna catch a ride on Derpy the new reindeer here so he can stop Toy Santa from delivering coal to the world. Santa saves the day, except before he delivers the presents, he's reminded that he has to get married. The principal's a little turned off by the idea that Santa was out looking for a bride just to keep his job, but she decides to marry him anyway, because he says he loves her. Oh, and because of this.
There's no pressure.
Good.
I mean, if I don't get married, I just won't deliver the gifts. Then children everywhere will stop believing. The elves will lose their jobs, the North Pole will disappear, and Christmas will be gone.
Jesus Christ, really? Wow. One of the elves decides to coach Santa through a proposal, which she accepts despite seeing that he is being walked through it almost every step of the way. Because, you know, they did have that one date. So she agrees to leave her career, her family, her friends, and everything she knows behind. Because Christmas. Seriously, this movie is amazingly awful. The premise is like something out of the 50s, and yet nobody has any real objection to it. There are token objections that some characters voice to Santa's got to find a bride in 30 days, but none of them deal with the fact that we are not treating the potential bride as a human being, but rather a trophy or a goal. But yet it still has to be somebody that Santa loves, because he doesn't want to marry somebody he doesn't love. But screw it if she doesn't love him, because he wants to be Santa. The issues with the son are never really properly resolved. They let him share the secret of Santa with his stepsister. Yeah, that's gonna fix everything. But, you know, everybody's cheering at the end, so it must be a happy ending for men everywhere. Women, we're sorry. We're so sorry. And Merry Christmas, everyone!